Hey everybody, this is Mr. Z. How are you guys doing today? I hope you're doing great. I hope you're having a great day, and let's get started. So today we're going to talk about a tool that you will be using when you read. This tool is called a story map. Okay, so I am going to show you what a story map is. But before that, I'm going to explain to you what it is, why do you need to use it, and how it is helpful. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. You can make the notes right along with me. Okay, story map. Okay, the story map is a tool that's going to help us see the big picture of the story you are reading. Okay, remember, a map gives us directions. If you are lost and confused, look at a map and find where you are, or find where you were, or find where you're going. A map is a very useful tool. Okay, so in this case, it's going to help us see the big picture of the story we're reading. When you see a map, you get to see everything that's on the map. You can kind of look around with your eyes and you will be able to find different places on the map. Places that you may or may not know were there until you see them in the map. So let's go ahead and talk about some things that you will see in the map. To begin with, you're going to be able to see information about, write a list of information that you can find in a story map. Starting with characters. You'll be able to see things about characters, okay? And when I say things, I mean information such as who they are. You might even have some traits from the character, but either way, you'll have information on the character or characters. We'll also have information on setting. Remember, the setting has four things. It is the place, three things. It is the place, the time, and the environment of the story. It's not just where the story happens. It is those three things. A story doesn't just happen in the park. It happens on a sunny day in the park. The place is the park. Time could be in the morning. The environment, is it a hot day? Is it a cold day? Is it raining? Because the story will change if the story would have a certain events if it was in the morning and it was hot, or it would be different if the story took place at night and it was cold. The setting affects the story. So depending on the setting, events in the story will be different. So have information on setting, on characters. On the setting, we're also going to have information on what the problem is. With that, we'll have information on the solution. Now remember, sometimes the problem is not solved. There are stories where problems are not solved, and that's okay. I don't want you to always think that you will always have a solution to the problem, because that's not the case. Okay? The problem may not be solved, but other things may happen that can be useful instead of a solution. For example, if you cannot solve the problem, perhaps other things happened and the problem was kind of fixed a little bit, or the problem ended up being not such a big deal at the end because of all the things. Okay? So we have characters, setting, problem, solution, and very important, sense. Just remember, I always say have a takeaway from everything you read. This is very important. We always have to be able to say that after you read something, you have a takeaway moment. You learned something. You learned something that happened to the character that in case if you were in that situation, you wouldn't want that to happen to you or someone that you know. Or maybe you knew certain consequences to certain actions or choices the character made. Or maybe you learned about new information that you didn't know. So there's always a takeaway from everything you read. That means that while you are reading, you must be doing something. Through all this, you're going to be thinking while you read. Because if it doesn't make sense, if you didn't understand it, it wasn't really reading. You have to be thinking about what you read, you have to be understanding what you read, you have to be able to explain things that are happening as you read. If you find yourself reading and going like, I don't know what I just read, that means you were not focused, or for some reason you lost the attention. So go back and read that so you completely understand it, okay? Because it happens to all of us. Sometimes we read something and we find ourselves going like, I just read 2 lines, 3 lines, I just read a paragraph and I have no idea what I just read. It's happened to me before. Sometimes it still happens to me. It is something that we have to do on purpose. We have to read, and on purpose, we have to make sure that we're paying attention to details, that we're thinking about what we're reading. Okay? Very easy to go on autopilot when we read and completely miss something that we should have caught. So now let's go ahead and do a quick review on this. A story map is going to help you see the big picture of the story you're reading. With a story map, you're going to be able to have information. You will have information on the characters, setting, problem, solution, and there will be lessons. Maybe 1, maybe 2, maybe 3. It depends on what you're reading. And remember, the lessons I learn might be a little bit different than the lessons you're learning. That's okay. As long as we have takeaway moments or lessons, that's what's important. In order for us to be able to have takeaway moments from everything we read, make sure that means we have to be thinking while we read. Remember, I always say, if it didn't make sense or you didn't understand it, you need to go back and read it so you can think it through, help it make sense, and help you understand it. So now that you know what the story map will have and how it'll help you, let's go ahead and do one. Now you guys are used to doing our thinking sheets. Our thinking sheets are it's just a step to get you ready to be able to do all the thinking while you read process on your own. So let's go ahead and start with this. A story map, as you know, is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. Okay. Now, characters and settings are going to be simple and pretty much straightforward. So I'm going to make this story map with a red pen so you can see how it is. Now, let me just start with this. If I were to ask you to get a thinking sheet ready, this is what you would do. You already know what a thinking sheet is. Thinking sheet is a line to the middle, horizontally and vertically. Then you do what? Yes, if you set circles, you're correct. We have 1 circle here, 1 circle here, 1 circle here, 1 circle here. After that, what do we do? Correct. If you said label the boxes, you do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you have it. There you go. That's a thinking sheet. You know how to do this. You were able to tell me, you do this line, you do this line, you do your circles, number the boxes. If you did it in a different order, that's okay, as long as it looks like this at the end. So what I'm getting at is this. You know how to get a thinking sheet ready. I don't have to explain it every single time because you've been doing them all along, and now you know how to do it. A story map is going to be like the same. It's going to be the same way. You're going to learn how to do it. You're going to learn how to do it. We're going to be doing them. And eventually you'll be able to just create it on your own and you'll be ready to go. Okay. So again, how many sections we're going to have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sections. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do what a story map sheet will look like. First things first, I do a rectangle here. Notice that my rectangle took about, if this was half, took about half of that. Right? Now I'm going to make the same rectangle down here. There you go. I have 2 rectangles, which means now I have this section. Now guess what? This section, I'm just going to connect here, and draw a line in the middle. Okay. Now that I've drawn this line in the middle, I'm going to draw another line here. And let's go ahead and count our sections. I'm going to label it, number them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. So now you know what I'm going to do. I am going to be actually labeling each section. So I'm going to write here characters, setting, problem, of course, solution, and the last one is lessons. So we have our 5 sections on this story map sheet, and we're going to be using these on stories we read. Now you're going to be asking yourself, do I do this for every story I read? Yes and no. What do I mean by yes? This is something that I want you to always be looking for when you read. What do I mean by no? Well, this only works with fiction stories. Stories that have a plot, have a beginning, a middle, and end. Stories that have a problem and a solution. Fiction stories are stories that are meant to tell you a sequence of events that make sense. Okay? I could tell you a story about 10 minutes of my day yesterday. I could tell you a story of my whole day yesterday. That would be a fiction story. Well, it would be a realistic fiction. It could be, actually, it would be almost like a memoir, a memory, a journal entry. But I can tell you a story in that way, and you would have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You would have a reason. There might be a problem. Guess what? The problem might not have a solution, but you would have this information. Okay. Now, if I am reading a non-fiction text, a non-fiction book about sharks, I am not going to have a problem in a solution. Although I may have some sort of text organization that talks about this, but it's not going to be like this. I wouldn't have characters. I would have a setting depending. The book might just be about sharks and not really tell me where they live. Although I would find it hard to believe that I would be reading a book about sharks, the book not tell me where they live. So again, this would be different. For a fiction book and a non-fiction book, it's completely different. We're going to be using this for fiction only. Fiction only. And that's when we're going to read this. Now, today, we're not going to be making one of these. What I want you to know is that how it works, how do you do it, and why is it useful and beneficial. So we already explained to you what it does and how to do it. Now I'm going to show you why it is beneficial. Well, as I read a story and I learn about, in the beginning, I'm always going to read about the characters and the problem. Okay, let me show you what I mean by that. When we have a plot is the series of components that make up a story. Okay, the story is going to have a beginning. Starts right here. And then, boom, something happens. There's a problem. There's a conflict, and there we have the beginning of the rising action. Different events that are leading to a solution of the problem, or not a solution of the problem. And usually at that point where we can either fix the situation or find something else, that is usually the high point of the story. After we have fixed the problem, or after we have found a different way to solve this that may not fully solve the problem, have falling action. And here's where we have. Then we continue going, and that's the end. Okay? You guys know how to summarize stories by telling me what happened in the beginning of the story, what happened in the middle of the story, and what happens in the end. And you guys know those as the B, M, E. Hard to say, can you tell me the BME of a story? You can probably start saying, oh yeah, I know what that is. I know what that is. Well, a plot has all this information. A plot has these sections of the story. A story map is going to help you find those things. For example, at the beginning of the story, we are always introduced to characters. Characters, main characters, and most of the times the most immediate characters after the main characters we learn about at the beginning. Usually, we also learn about the setting. The setting might change throughout the story, but we are introduced to the main setting at the beginning of the story. Okay? In the middle, we're going to have different events. These events are going to lead to the solution. Okay? But that means that we had a problem, and usually the conflict or problem happens at the end of the beginning. So we learn character, setting, and problem. Look, character, setting, problem, events that lead to solutions. Those are 4 sections of our story map. In fact, those are all the sections of our story map, with the exception of the lessons, what we learn. And here, you're not going to have that explicitly written. It's not going to be there. Usually those are things that we have to think through and we have to make in our mind after we have read the story. So at the end is where we have made up our mind on the lessons in the story. So watch. Characters and setting we learn about in the beginning. Yes, as the story goes on, we will learn about more characters. Yes, we might hear about different settings as we read. But normally they are introduced at the beginning. The problem we read about is still in the beginning. It is after that problem that events start taking place or happening. So the events that lead to the solution, climax and solution, are in the middle. At the end, we have what we would say would be where we learn about our lesson. So if I were to look back at the map, I would tell you that early in the story, I'm going to know about the characters and the setting. As I read, I might add a little more information here, but usually I have pretty much almost everything I need from the beginning of the story on the characters, at least the main characters and secondary characters. The setting, again, at the beginning of the story, you're going to learn where you are or where the story is happening. Yes, as you read, you may have to add a little bit more to this, but usually you have the big idea at the beginning of the story. Then as you read, you learn about the problem and events that lead to the solution. So, beginning, middle and end, and this is your ending. So that is how it works. Now, why is this beneficial? Well, if you can look at the characters and you can look at the setting and you can look at the problem, you can start excuse me, you can start analyzing how the setting affects the problem. You will be able to answer questions such as, if the character was in a different setting, how would he or she react to the problem? You could make more accurate inferences. If you know the setting, you're very well aware of the setting problem. You can make more accurate inferences about the characters. If you know the setting, character, setting, and problem, you can start making predictions and confirm those as you read. This story map is a tool that is going to help you think and analyze the story as you read. It is also going to help you focus your brain as you are reading. And your brain is going to be working as you're reading, getting this information for you. But it's very important that we set a purpose when we read, so that way we can be ready to get this done as we are reading our story. Now, tomorrow, we're going to be using this character map on our story we're going to read. Today, we're not doing that. Today is going to be simple. 1, 2, 2. We're going to have another story to read. And I just want you to be thinking about this, how to do it. If you want to try it, go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try it. Because I want you to play with it almost, okay? Tomorrow we'll have a story, and as we read the story, we're going to be filling this out together, just like we did our thinking sheets. But I didn't want to do all of it all at once. Today is just a lesson on what a story map is, how to use it, and why it is important. Hey guys, well, I hope you're doing well. I hope you enjoyed the story we're going to be having later today. And I can't wait to get this started with you guys as we do our thinking sheets and as we do all this together. When we read, we're going to be analyzing a lot of stories and having great discussions about what we read. Now guys, go ahead and have a good day. Read something, try something new, try new words, say new words. If you make a mistake, it's okay. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, because that is how we get better and that is how we learn. I will see you guys later.